Okay, hey YouTube. So if you guys didn't catch it recently, there's been some discussion on Lobby Legends and Battlegrounds Esports, and I've been meaning to make this video for a while, collecting all my thoughts on how Lobby Legends can be improved, how Battlegrounds Esports can be improved, because that isn't necessarily limited to Lobby Legends. I've co-streamed every single Lobby Legends finals. I've watched almost all the qualifiers. I've done watchstones for almost all the qualifiers. I've done watchstones for some of the qualifying periods. So I've been following a lot. I'm very passionate. If you guys don't know, I've hosted tournaments. I've been following traditional sports passionately for over 20 years. I've been following esports passionately for over 10 years. And obviously I'm super invested in Battlegrounds. So I really think that, not that I'm necessarily like right, but I have a lot of thoughts. I mean, in high school, I started a video games club, and one of the things we did was play around with all these tourney formats. So I'm really like fascinated by the whole topic. Lots of thoughts. If you noticed a while ago, I think I had a tweet. Really, I'd never experienced Czech format before, and so I was skeptical when they announced it. It's not a typical format or anything like that, and it's been fantastic. So like that, my point is, I don't know everything. I can be wrong. I just have this background and I'm fascinated by it, so I have a lot of thoughts, and if you guys know me, I like to talk about those thoughts. So let's talk about how we can fix Lobby Legends. That implies that there's something wrong, and I think that is true. Sun recently, as you see here, as I have pulled up on the screen, talks about interest dwindling, and I don't know if that's the case. I don't have the numbers in terms of viewership, but there is a problem with driving interest. And so let's just talk about the background. I'll pull up Notepad here. Let's talk about the background of how to fix Lobby Legends. And to do that, let's start by going through like what the stages are, right? So the first part of Lobby Legends is pre-qualification. Basically, that's ladder based, right? You qualify for Lobby Legends by being in the top 16 of ladder and then moving on to a qualifier to qualify for the finals for each region. Now, some of the issues with that are namely accessibility, in the sense that not everyone has the ability to grind ladder or to necessarily get that high, and there's pros and cons to that. Obviously, you are getting very amazing players every tournament. If you are that high on ladder, doesn't matter what people think, you are a skilled player who is it's not luck based to be high ranked on ladder, is what I'm trying to say, I guess. But it is a grind, right? Another problem is that it's not event based. So in the sense that there's not actual qualifiers or tournaments like that, it's over the course of a month for any given month. Outside of resets, that is sort of static. So it also means there's a limited window of like followability, right? Like, we're not following it for the first 28 days of the month, because like so much can change and so much doesn't change, and it's just not interesting to follow for like 28 days out of the month, right? And then you get to the last 2 days and then the grind is on. You're like, okay, these are the people who maybe have a chance, but most of the players that are, on the leaderboards and highly ranked and whatnot, they're not gonna, is there a, I think there, okay. Let me pull up the leaderboards quickly, because the point is they don't shift very often, right? The top end of the leaderboards is pretty static, and you drive people to camp and it looks like it's just like not loading. So that would be something that would be worth checking out as well. So anyways, let's go back to our notepad here quick. So we're not event-based. There's a limited window for followability, and there's limited player followability, right? Because you're only going to have 5 to 10 maybe players. Sometimes it's less. It's been less. I've seen it be less that are even in that sort of window of trying to qualify for the top 16 at the end of a season. On top of that, we don't know that there's a hard cutoff for top 16, which makes it like, it kind of kills the drama, I guess, of the whole thing. Because you don't know, maybe 17 will make it because someone won't be able to make it because they qualified on another server. And so like, that's something that people are considering. And yeah, it's just not great. You have a limited window. You have a limited set of players. Player followability, and that's not good, right? We're trying to enhance followability because we're trying to drive interest in the game. The other problem is that even then, considering all that stuff, it's so hard to follow, right? Because you have to be following player perspectives. You like, the only way to really follow it, and there's not, I'm not saying there's a solution for this, but it's just a statement of fact, is like leaderboards refreshing, which this isn't even working. If you go back, I'm going to come back to the HS Esports Twitter in a bit, but if we go back to here, okay, there's somewhere here, June 29th, the EU players weren't even able to look at leaderboards to see where they were. So even if you were trying to qualify, you couldn't follow along. Imagine trying to be someone that's trying to check if their favorite player is going to qualify, is in the range. You know, you don't really have a good way to do that. So the whole pre-qualification process is something that, you know, it's hard to follow, and it's not, you know, we're not using this to build up fans, basically. Because we're strictly ladder based, again, there's pros and cons to that. It limits future possibilities, right? Basically, there's only certain things you can do when you're doing a ladder based qualification. It means that it can be hard to have invites, not necessarily a good thing, but like, or qualifiers or formats, all these sorts of things, they can be limited by it being ladder based. The pros, though, there are pros for the pre-qualification, because I don't think I'm going to come back to a lot of this stuff. I think that maybe it should change, but it's probably not the highest priority to change. You're getting good players. You're getting absolutely good players. You're getting consistency, like a natural consistency in who shows up, because it's this, you know, mostly the same players that are top 16, with a few swapping out every month or each event. And they're open, right? I mean, it is true that anyone can qualify through ladder. Now, of course, we talked about accessibility, the ability to grind, you know, players that have other life engagements and priorities aren't going to be as free to dedicate the time needed to be at the top of ladder, because it does take a lot of time. Battlegrounds is a RNG based game, which means that you need to dedicate time to get average results. And, you know, if you're a better player, that means dedicating the time to prove that you're the better player to move to the top of the leaderboards. And with how MMR works, that's how you climb, right? So that's sort of the stuff that we have on the pre-qualification, right? And then we have qualifiers, right? That's the next step of the puzzle for Lobby Legends. And qualifiers, our big problems here are like, there's no publicity. Like I said, I've done co-streams or not co-streams, but like watch parties where I sort of cast along the qualifiers based on the perspectives that I have. And there's just no publicity that's happening for them. Most people don't even know they're going on. I've talked to players who didn't even realize they were going on like the day before. It's just very, like, for being an official part of Lobby Legends, there's very little to no publicity. They're hard to watch again and follow because they don't show names, which I don't think is a thing. It should be a thing. I know that one of the things they've talked about is that it impacts potential cheating. I actually think it makes it easier to cheat, but I won't talk about that because I don't want to encourage it. But I don't agree with the not showing names because it makes it harder to follow, even from players, not from like if you're doing a watch party, but like players are allowed to stream their perspectives of qualifiers and they're not even able to see names. So it's really hard to tell how people are doing, who's doing. It's just not something you can like watch a game and really follow very well. And it really needs to be fixed because it's actually, the qualifiers have been fantastically interesting. There's just no publicity. It's extremely hard to follow. And part of that, goes into what is like the main issue, in that it's hard to develop a personal attachment or be like a fan of Lobby Legends, right? Like it's almost like the qualifiers didn't happen. Okay. if you guys were like, yeah, did those happen already? Like, do you know if we don't even know if the Chinese qualifiers have happened, and that's great. Like it's a quarter of Lobby Legends. And we don't even know if they happened. And it's probably the same for a lot of people for the multi-region qualifiers, in that people are just not going to know that they happened because of the prior two things. The last part is, I think the format is awful. You are basically saying, okay, you're going to dedicate 30 days or a month to qualifying, right? You qualify for the qualifiers through ladder. You're going to dedicate all that time and you get 3 games 2 times. Right? You get 3 games 2 times to prove yourself in a game that is heavily RNG dependent. And it feels really bad for players. It's going to feel really bad for fans because, like, it's not like March Madness where you have these one and dones and there's this high drama. Like, that's not what you want this to be, right? Lobby Legends is supposed to be about sussing out the best of the best and having them have a chance at, ultimate glory and winning this like pinnacle tournament. And that isn't what 3 game rounds feels like. And feel is important. You guys can argue on Twitter about that. Another small thing is matchups don't change. So if you don't know what that means, I'll pull up the standing sheet created by the lovely Donnie SC. You can find them at this Competitive Battlegrounds Discord, which I will try and link in the description. I'll try and put all the stuff that I'm referring to in links in the description, at least the interesting resources. Twitter, just go check Twitter. If you're not on Twitter, you should be on Twitter if you're interested in this stuff, because so much information is disseminated through Twitter. Again, pros, cons, whatever. The big thing is the way that qualifiers work is that Lobby 1 and Lobby 4, the top 4 of both, create Lobby 1 in round 2, which means that if you qualify through Lobby 1, you're playing against the same at least 3 of the same players. Well, no, exactly 3 of the same players from your first round in your second round. So you're not seeing new players, you're not getting to play against new players. Depending on, these are seeded, right? These are selected spots. Like this, you can see is the Asia Pacific first seed, Lobby 2. It's seeded all the way through. That's why it's a nice little pattern here, the regional distribution. And one of the pros of doing it this way is that you do generally increase your regional distribution in the qualifiers, but I don't think it's as fun to be able to see these different matchups, right? Like if we're talking about storylines, being able to set it up so that players are playing against different players, and you might get to see, a super good player from, one region play against the other. Yeah, it's hard to talk about because it is seeded. So like you do want to try and have it play out that way, but that is a con in that we're not getting those matchups of, you know, if you wanted to see Satellite take on XQN, like that could have never happened from the get-go because of the seeds from the start. And even if you really wanted to like be crazy, you could like, if you're a player that knew you were kind of secure, you could try and like lose a few games to dodge a matchup, because you would know theoretically if everyone accepted where you might end up, and you could try and not end up in the same lobby as a different player if you felt like that benefited you in some way. So having some rotation between the rounds would be, I think it would be a good thing. But again, there are pros to it. It's seeded. It helps promote regional diversity. But from a viewing perspective, you do kind of miss out on some stuff. You might miss out on some storylines of rivalries and things like that, which again, we'll come back to a little bit. So then after we get through the qualifiers, we're into the finals, right? Which is a 2-day event. It consists of the semifinals, where the 12 qualifiers from the multi-regional qualifier are joined by the 4 qualifiers from the Chinese qualifier. And then day 2 is the finals. So again, the day 1 format is bad. 3 games, same thing. It's just, it doesn't feel good. I don't think it feels good to viewers. I don't think it feels good to players. I think the main selling point is that it's only 3 games, so time-wise, it's good. Everything else is pretty bad. I feel like I had something else to say about that, but yeah, I mean, it's hard to change. It's something to think about. I understand that, you know, we'll talk about the other things that we have to consider as we go through this. So this is when there's finally official streams, right? With casting and production is the finals. Casting is still, let's call it work in progress. I don't think it's perfect, but I think that it's very clear that they're trying different casters out. They're trying different things out, and it's something that'll improve in the future. I think it already has improved over time. I know production sort of follows, right? Production goes hand in hand with casting, and it's still work in progress, and it is improving. I think production especially has improved from the first Lobby Legends to what we've seen in the third Lobby Legends, and I'm sure we'll see minor improvements going into the fourth one this weekend, so like very soon. But it's something that could be improved. I'd love to see you know, maybe the ability to hover context things on the sidebar from the observer. I think maybe even having a time to pause on the hero selection. You know, they're working with a delay, so you can kind of work that into production. So utilizing that or running back replays gets a little difficult with like keeping time continuity while you're casting, but it could be interesting in the right spots. Having production where you could like zoom in on the cameras for their reactions on certain moments, right? Because I think you need to promote the players a lot more, and so like zooming in on their camera is a great way to do that, really capture their personality in the game. Like if you can show their excitement or their like concern, that's going to help fans connect. And so I think something like that would be great. Casting, like I said, it's still work in progress. I think I'll talk about it when we get to a later section on how I think it could be improved. I think that right now, since Battlegrounds is so new, right, the Lobby Legends casting, we've only seen 3 sets. They just announced that 4th set. I'm really excited to see Nina, sort of a newcomer, cast with Raven. We saw Collins in Lobby Legends 3 as a newcomer, and these are Battlegrounds oriented streamers, and so it seems like they're bringing in like one new Battlegrounds person each time, and I think that's fantastic, right? Eventually, they had Slissa in the first one. Eventually, if we can get like some of these dual Battlegrounds Casts, I think it'll be really good. The exception, of course, is Gia, who's fantastic at Battlegrounds casting. I've cast with her, super good. She's fantastic, and she's been really good as a co-caster for the sort of new casters, but that are Battlegrounds focused. And I think that's something that, yeah, it'll improve. I trust them. They're testing new casters out. They're bringing in new people. They're bringing in Battlegrounds focused player personalities, and that'll be really nice. There's so little publicity though. Still, it's kind of a disaster. I mean, maybe that's an intense way to describe it, but like, there's still so little publicity for the finals event. Publicity, spelling kick. If we go to like the socials, I'm sorry if you're the HS Esports person and I'm just like tearing you apart on this. Like, I mean, truly, I mean all this in the most constructive way possible. The socials for the esports, specifically Lobby Legends, is so underwhelming, right? Here's June 25th. So this is like during, this is the winning tweet. This is it. And then a thank you, right? Like, it's very unengaging. It like, we don't see like a winning board, or it's how many points, who got second? Like, maybe it's underneath. No, but like, Waterloo is a fantastic player, and this just says, you know, like, the Nomi dream is real. Like, let's throw Nomi in here or something. The graphics can be improved. The links at this point, like, the tournament's over. Like, we don't probably need these here. Like, from a social media marketing perspective, like, yeah. The reveals are good, but like, if you look at some of these, like, who's co-streaming, which players are streaming their perspective. Like, one of the great things is that players can stream their perspective. It's sort of here. It's I know in the past there's been a page with the player streams. That should be an image for people to find, and there should be links to that, and really promoting the fact that you can go look at the players' perspectives. Like, having players be able to stream it is fantastic and really interesting, and it promotes the players more. That's such a big thing I'm going to keep coming back to. There's all the co-streamers. Look, there's me. But it's lacking, and like, this graphic is not engaging to me at all. It's just like a blurry, like, what's going on here, you know? The reveals are great, right? But then otherwise, like, these graphics are just very lackluster, right? Like, this is very plain. I think if they worked on the socials a little bit more, like, these are screenshots from the event. Yeah, pushing more engaging stuff. Like, these are great. This is perfect. These videos are amazing. This is the stuff that's gonna draw people in and get that engagement. The other stuff is much less exciting. I don't have like updates on what's happening, right? So like, if I haven't tuned in, like, what did I miss? Like, the reveals are great. That's a great driver to get people to view, right? This is where you can catch reveals for the next patch. Like, that's fantastic. I love that. But like, how are the players doing? How's the event going? Are there highlights, right? Like, if we look at traditional sports, like, teams will post highlights, show the lethal, like the last lethal, just a clip or something like that on socials, and then show the standings. Like, that would be fantastic. It would be so good. So that's a spot that could be improved. I think, you know, these things should be in the BG's launcher. I don't really pay attention because I've been co-streaming, but like, put the Waterloo's in the champion in the launcher for a couple days. Like, this is a big deal. Like, Waterloo is one of the best Battlegrounds players of all time, and I feel like people just like didn't even realize that, and they didn't get a connection to you. who he was in that context, and I don't know if this was I don't know, so I could be wrong, but like put it in the launcher so people like give the recognition, more promo to the event that's going to happen, like just promo it in every way possible. I don't know. Maybe I don't know what the budget is. I'll talk about this later too, but like sponsor some stuff, like show ads, right? Like maybe you can show ads on Twitch. I don't know what the cost is, but like I don't know. Or we can talk about like bundle giveaways. Like bundle giveaways could be a really great way to promote Lobby Legends. I don't know. Maybe this is. Well, I'll talk about it later. Soon. But there's so many ways to improve this this bit, right? That there's so little publicity. And lastly, I want to say again, like the check format is really, really good though. Like for all the other things, check format is really good, and I want to call that out because I doubted it, and it's been fantastic. It's been adding a lot of drama. It's super fun to watch. It doesn't feel like anyone's ever out. And honestly, I'm saying that having watched 3 separate Lobby Legends, where the first game that the champion won the lobby, the first game they had the lobby in check 3 times. Be Nice did it, Max 7 Key did it, and Waterloo did it. That doesn't mean that the tourney ended as soon as someone got the lobby in check, but it's been quick generally. So we could see even more dramatic events in the future, is what I'm trying to say with that. But even with the less dramatic, it's been fantastic to watch. So that's the context for how Lobby Legends is set up right now, right? And some of the issues there. Like the format isn't good. Following it is difficult. Like live standings for the qualifiers and finals that players could check on, like a link to a web page that had it updated or something in real time, or even delayed time to match up with cast and stuff, would be fantastic, right? It's just very difficult to follow the events right now. There's little publicity to get people in. Once you're watching, it's hard to follow if you've missed anything, so it's hard to hop in the middle. Help that, and then consider fixing the format, like the 3 games. Like I don't think that's the priority. I don't think it's great, but I don't think that's the priority. Like the priority needs to be on driving interest first. So let's talk about that though, right? Let's talk about fixing, like how do we fix it, right? And there's some things we need to keep in mind, because I think it's really easy, and I'm probably falling prey to it at some point in this video talking about it. To keep in mind is that it's easy to say these things, but we have to consider things from the esports team perspective, right? Like what are their goals? What are their limitations, right? Big thing, and I'll talk about this in a second, because Abar has sort of enlightened the community with some responses that you may not have seen, and might provide some valuable context to you, is BGS needs to make money. I mean, that's been a struggle for Battlegrounds, for the developers, and, you know, for a long time, Battlegrounds didn't really have any way to make money. They started by having packs open up perks, and then perks became separate, and you can buy them with gold. So like if you play Battlegrounds enough, you don't need to put in money, which is fantastic. Having a truly free-to-play game be competitive in that way is a very good thing. That is how you get players. The monetization has now come in the form of cosmetics, which we have strikes, formerly known as finisher. You know, the cosmetic to the animation at the end is something that we have now. We have skins, of course, we have boards, and we might have some other things coming soon, like potentially emotes. And so those things are how Battlegrounds makes money right now, and esports is coming out of that budget in a sense, right? So basically, I'll just cut to this. This is Abar's message on that competitive Battlegrounds Discord. I'll just read it. Since I'm in this channel and couldn't help but read through the previous discussion, I might as well chime in. You might have already noticed, but the names of the Battlegrounds Lobby Legends events, Raid Leaders, Noble Garden, Eternal Night, are the names of the cosmetic bundles available for purchase during the corresponding Lobby Legends event. The name of the Raid Leaders bundle was changed to Raiders Unite very late in the process, which is why those two didn't match up perfectly, but you get the idea. During Lobby Legends Eternal Night, the Eternal Night bundle will be available in the shop, and we equip the super accounts of the competitors with the Eternal Night skins board strike to show off and hopefully make people want to buy the bundle or some of those items due to watching our broadcast. So why they're initially named why are they initially named number 3 and switched to Eternal Night? Because we can't leak the name branding of the cosmetics before they're ready to be announced, shown off by Team 5. Same general pattern applies to the Masters Tour, except we named those after the expansions rather than the cosmetic bundles. While it might seem a little silly to all of you, part of how we justify existence value to Team 5 as esports is that we can use our program to help sell products. Initiatives like this that tie esports to purchasable items make my bosses very happy, and my bosses are the ones who decide whether or not esports gets to exist. Battlegrounds in particular is tricky. With Constructed, we are inherently showing off a product that people can spend a good amount of money on. Battlegrounds doesn't really monetize in the same way, so how do we justify Battlegrounds esports in terms of being a revenue source? Cosmetics is the best answer right now. That's my note. So if you want Lobby Legends to exist, join me in shilling it. Smiley face. I think they actually have done a good job about this. I think cosmetics is the best answer for right now. I don't have a better answer, right? Like BGs needs to make money. There's not tickets or TV deals, right? So BGs is inherently marketing, right? To basically buy cosmetics, right? Marketing of the monetization that exists. So we're restricted by that. It's like viewership is great, but viewership only exists to basically show these advertising of cosmetics and stuff. So you have to keep that in mind. Like there needs to be a purpose to doing things. Blizzard is a business, and I think people need to keep that in mind. Like keeping players happy is part of the business, right? You need to keep your customers happy, but you also do need to make money, or there's no point in them doing it. Like we need to justify our existence as a game, as players. Like that is just inherently how it works. Now you can disagree with whether it should be like that, or that just is how it is right now, and so that's the constraints that we need to work within. So there has to be some bit of a proven model, right? Like it's not something Battlegrounds isn't as established, especially as an esport, that you can just like go completely off the deep end and like try and experimenting new things, because if it fails, it's dead. You know, so we need to keep that in mind. There's resource limitations. I think this is a big thing. People ask, why are the qualifiers on the weekdays? And at sometimes weird times, because the esports team is also dealing with Masters Tour and Grandmasters and other events, and they have admins that are working on all of these events, and you need to understand what you have from time on their part, because again, that's money and investment, and so you have resource limitations, right? In all regards, that manifests itself in the prize pool. And if we could just give infinite money to people and, you know, just throw money all day long at it, we could do lots of cool things. But yeah, we are going to be limited by resources. Co-streams are an interesting thing, because they get into a few things, right? Why do co-streams exist? We should ask ourselves this. Co-streams exist because for Battlegrounds, we talked about the big thing is that viewership is the selling point. There's not like a YouTube deal or anything like that, right? There's no TV deal. There's not tickets to attend and watch in person. It's just strictly viewership and eyes, right? And co-streams are increasing the eyes on Lobby Legends. Now that's good and bad, because it does overall increase the number of eyes because you're reaching a wider base. Regardless of how big the co-streamer is, if they have one person that is watching because of that co-streamer, that's one additional set of eyes on the event that feeds into their stats, so that when Abar goes to his Team 5 bosses, he can say, this is how many people watched Lobby Legends, right? As a co-streamer, I get that. Now, part of the problem is that we are getting to the point where there are a lot of co-streamers, and like anything else, if you break up to too many branches, you're diluting your feeds, right? You're diluting some of the things you can do in terms of promoting some of that stuff. So I guess I can just talk about the co-stream bit now. I personally think that co-streams should probably be cut down a little bit at this point. Even if that means it's mine, right? And they should be focused on having the co-streams serve different niches, right? You could have a stream that maybe targets very high level players that are interested strictly in talking about these like high level decisions, because the gameplay is extremely high level. You could have a co-stream that's focused on lower level players, right? Like, what if you're new to the game? Let's promote a stream that has a co-streamer, or maybe a set. You say these two are going to do a stream on this channel, and it's going to be the noob friendly stream where you explain like how things work, and even basic things like selling a minion gets 1 gold. Like, have it so that there's an accessible stream for newer players that are trying to get into Battlegrounds but maybe don't have the knowledge or experience to sort of comprehend like all these like peak level plays and all these amazing things, but have a co-stream that's focused on that. Or different languages, right? Like, that's one of the huge things that I think is really awesome about co-streams, is you can have a Korean, a Chinese, a Spanish. You can have these different languages, but then as official streams. But then for a co-stream, you can hit these more niche languages that Battlegrounds still has fans, right? It's something you can play in many different languages, even if you can't read the text on the cards. You can figure it out. You can play it. You can enjoy it. If there's a co-streamer that can cover some of that ground, they're not going to be watching the mainstream because they're not going to understand the casting. And so give them an option to go to, right? Like, have the co-streams have purpose so that they're still existing, but then we can focus eyes a little bit. And I think that's something that should maybe be considered, not necessarily now, but maybe in the future, in terms of having purpose. And then, like, how are we driving viewers, right? We're talking about viewers, so like, how are we driving viewers? And like skins, we talked about skins as being like a sort of a bit of the reason why Battlegrounds can exist, esports can exist, right? Like, driving those skins. But what if we talked about having drops, right? I think they've mentioned that they don't have the capability to drop bundles. But what if, like, in between games there was like a code dropped in chat, right, to like get players to watch, or 5 or 10, right? Obviously there's some lost cost, but it's not that much, right? And because it's digital goods, the resource cost to Blizzard is obviously the opportunity cost of someone buying it, but it's not that great overall, right, money wise, which is the big resource, right? But it'll drive people to watch. Maybe you give those to the co-streamers. That sounds biased, but like, maybe that's an option. Or maybe you use that as the incentive beforehand, right? Like, have co-streamers, or even non-co-streamers, but just like bigger streamers, like they do the giveaways anyways, these bundle giveaways. use them to drive advertising to Lobby Legends on socials, on stream, saying, hey, these skins will be available after Lobby Legends. Tune into Lobby Legends for the sneak peek, right? Or something like that. There's something there, right? If you can't do drops, doing giveaways, stuff like that, doing advertising with skins or bundles, whatever it is, right? It could be it could be a good way to drive viewers, I guess. I think a huge start, so this is something this is like a big part of what I wanted to talk about, is like what we can learn from traditional sports. So for our international fans, you know, football or soccer, you know, if you're American like me, or, you know, for the Americans, like baseball, basketball, American football, hockey, like these are huge entities, hugely popular. We can learn something from traditional sports. What do we learn from them? Fans. Like I said, I've been following sports. If you watch me normally, you know I have like sports jerseys in the background normally. Side note, I'm moving my setup, so they'll be back eventually, but that's why you don't see them right now. They'll be back. I've been a fan of most of the sports teams that I am a fan of for like over 20 years. Like, it's been driven into me. How can you build that sort of passion and attachment? It's you don't have the regional stuff. Overwatch League is a good example of one of the first esports that was trying to drive that. You had like general regional stuff. That's why you have like NA versus EU, or Americas versus EU versus China versus APAC, like in different regions and how they split. Sometimes CIS is its own region depending on the esport. You know, you have these like sort of natural rivalries built up, and that's hugely popular. So like we'll talk about what we can learn from esports also, but like, you know, how do we drive fans? One of the big things is promoting the players. Players are the stars in Battlegrounds. Players are the players. Yes, that too. Players are the stars, right? We should be getting background on the players. Like, find bios, like in the pregame, like talk about the players a little bit, like give them some personality that we can attach to. You know, how do they play even? Like, are they greedy players? Are they players that are going to go for high rolls? Are they safe players? Like, give something for viewers to relate to and connect with the players. Whether it's where they're from, whether it's just some, you know, a streamer that they like maybe the player is like, we didn't hear about Waterloo. Waterloo is one of the best players in Battlegrounds, period. Top 3, and I probably don't think many people would contest that. Top 5, I think no one would contest it. Like, that's how good Waterloo is. I don't know if we got that background in the broadcast, and certainly most players wouldn't have caught on to that because we didn't get the background on the players and stuff like that, right? For the players that are streaming, like, promote their streams. Like, say, hey, go watch their perspective. Like, really push their perspective. And I know they've mentioned it on stream before, but like, give the link, make it as accessible as possible. Like, promote the players, create fans, right? Create fans that want to follow these players, that want them to be successful. We do have some of that with like multiple players, like following up, right? Like they're playing in multiple Lobby Legends. But there's like all the tournaments are like standalone, and that's a big problem too. Yeah, I'll get back to that. But like, create fans, promote the players, because that's what the fans will be fans of, is the players. Maybe something to think about is like teams, right? You have a loyalty to teams. I know Lobby Legends isn't a team format, but maybe that's something we consider in the future, is like creating teams. And if a duo format were to exist, like, I think teams would potentially sell better. Part of the reason is that you can create storylines. This goes for players or teams. And my spelling is you can have these highs and lows, right? Real success where you're rooting for someone. You know, we don't have some of these storylines because the events are standalone, but like recovering from lows. I think in the last Lobby Legends, one of the exciting parts was watching was a kid who started off with some poor results and then moved up with some good results at the end, and like that's fascinating to follow. Like really push these storylines within the events, push these overarching storylines of the player who, you know, they were in the qualifiers 3 times but they just couldn't make it, and now they're here. Like you know, like push that stuff. Like, but I don't think we get that almost at all. You know, this player is going for the repeat. Like, Be Nice hasn't been in Lobby Legends since winning the first one, and so that storyline, you know, has now sort of gone away. And yeah, we're having some repeats now, and part of this is like there's only been 3 Lobby Legends, but even then there was info that we could have gotten on these players beforehand to promote these storylines. I mean, you see it in reality TV, you see it in traditional sports. Is like, you just push the storylines. Like, players or fans are so invested in these personalities that it makes them want to follow, right? Like, this player had to come back from injury and now they're fighting for the championship. Like, that is compelling, right? You know, these they're similar storylines, right? Like, maybe a player's jumping into Battlegrounds for the first time and they're passed as a competitive player in a different game. Like, talk about that. Those are interesting things. Like, some of the downtime in production, like have a third person who's not the casters, because they do need breaks. Like, talk about some of that stuff, right? And then your downtime isn't just like sitting there. It's like, let's learn about player A, player B, you know, in these downtimes. It doesn't need to be a lot, but it needs to be something, because that's how you get these storylines, right? Another thing that's interesting about traditional sports, somewhat esports too, but stats. This will probably resonate for a lot of esports fans, because, I mean, not to stereotype too much, but like, you know, sometimes it tend to be on like the nerdier side or more that sort of stuff. It's interesting to follow for a lot of players, right? Like, I mean, baseball is huge on this. You know, like, there's a billion stats in baseball, and if you're just into stats, like, baseball's got to be like one of the best sports. There's so many stats, and it's really interesting to follow. Let's get some of that going on, right? The heroes, like HS Replay. I mean, people probably know from, if you're a fan of mine, I love looking at HS Replay stats, and yeah, are they perfect? No, but what can we distill from that? Those are super fun. If you guys don't know E.T. Wong, he has a spreadsheet. I'll put this in the description below. This is the stats that you were looking for, right? Like, a lot of this covers it, right? How many players or how many qualifiers have they been in? How many top 16s have they been to? How many finals have these players been to, right? Like, Dabido is the two-time finalist and got second twice, right? That's crazy. Like, Dabido is actually the highest Lobby Legends earner and got the most points in the April Eternal Night Lobby Legends, right? Like, these are interesting stats. These are interesting outcomes. Promote it, right? And there's qualifiers. Like, so this sort of stuff is fascinating. If you want to take a look, highly recommend checking out this sheet. But like, promote this stuff, or, you know, either on your own or by working with someone like Dapido. And I know they've worked with Donnie, you know, keeping some of the stats and stuff, but like, this stuff is interesting. Make this accessible for players, right? Stats, you know, whether it's heroes, minion stats, that sort of stuff is super interesting. If there's a way that we can capture some of that, oh man. Like, partner with HS Replay, have them track all the games, right? Just tell the players, like, hey, if you could please use HS Replay so we can track these, and then, you know, or for, you know, whatever, one of the trackers, like, work with them, create a partnership. It could be mutually beneficial. It would be so interesting for so many players to just look at and explore and think about and delve into and get like more deeply invested, right? And then, like, what can we learn from other esports, right? I think so. From a casting perspective, I actually wanted to talk about this because so if you look at the popularity of traditional sports to esports, like there's a huge connection. There's articles everywhere, right? Like there's been pictures. Like this is the New York Times, right? Like this is a whole thing. It's a big deal. Like esports is growing. It's a big, like there's connections to sports and esports. Esports has been growing crazily. A lot of sports teams are investing in esports teams and even having esports of, like Madden for football or NBA 2K for basketball. Like they're promoting the video games of their sports. Like it's a big thing. Just lots of stuff. I went to TI 6 or 7. I can't remember which one. The International Dota's Championship in person. And they filled Key Arena, like a full sports arena with fans. Like there's obviously a connection between sports and esports. And one of the things I wanted to talk about was like commentary, and this applies to sports and esports, is like setting an expected roster of duos, right? So like if you watch Dota or StarCraft, like if you have a StarCraft background, I know there's some people in the Hearthstone community that do have the StarCraft background, like Tasteless and Artosis, right? Like that's the duo, and they have their roles as an analyst and play-by-play, right? So sometimes people don't know the play-by-play is the person that's gonna say what's happening, like literally play by play, but usually they're the person that's like hyping up the things that are happening and exciting. And then the color commentator is the person that's providing the analysis and the background information and why this was a good play, what was interesting about this, and overall strategy concepts and things like that. And then they'll oftentimes like have like stories or like this situation, or like in Last Lobby Legends we saw this same thing happen on this server, right? Or Shutterwalk did this, and that sort of stuff. That's so like having those roles fleshed out, having a consistent set of casters that fill both of those roles, right? Because it's been proven, it's a proven formula. We talked about having proven models to work off of. I think casting, again, I know this is a work in progress. They're testing out new casters and stuff, so this will come in the future, but it's something to keep in mind as an end goal. And I think a sideline reporter would be something that's fantastic. I know for the past few events, Lorinda has been the observer. Have a sideline reporter that can like maybe chime in every once in a while and say like, oh, like I think the last Lobby Legends, Gia mentioned like, oh, Lorinda said that Shutterwalk picked up an Athissa. Like, have a natural way for like some back channel communication. This is a production thing, right? For Lorinda to say, oh, I'm gonna chime in quick, like if you guys like just pause on your next break and say, have Lorinda chime in and say, breaking news, Shutterwalk has an Athissa, and then you can switch to that perspective and talk, have them add some insight, and like they tripled this into that, or they found it in the shop, like they rolled down, and like you have these extra eyes that are paying attention to the different perspectives that maybe the casters might not be as focused on, and let them also add in, because you get so many more perspectives, and it's just a good way without overwhelming the chemistry of having a duo that's been very proven, is have like a third person that chimes in every once in a while. And then like the connection to esports we see, and this is literally just the Wikipedia for sports commentator, right? In video games, particularly esports, they're often called shoutcasters, right? And because for a long time it was like very shouty casting, right? And I mean, what I think you can pull from Hearthstone is, Hearthstone is much calmer. It's not like a shooter or a MOBA where there's like these huge high action team fights or like tense 1v1 battles at the end. Although there is in a way, but I get that. But I think you could add more hype, is what I'm saying. Like you get some like exciting fights, or like play that up. Like let's have the casters really work on like playing that up, in like a dramatic downfall or like a terrible unlucky miss. Like add some emotional oomph, because that'll pull that'll pull the viewers in. And again, you're trying to like get them emotionally invested. So I think not necessarily shouting, but adding some more emotion to the casting would be a good thing. And I think that'll come naturally as you get good duos with play-by-play and color commentators, and they have good chemistry, and they'll be able to like, oh no, like they missed their triple, like this is terrible, this is a disaster, how are they gonna come back, like, and then that naturally creates these storylines versus like when Shutterwalk like at the end like just lose it, right? Like we saw Waterloo in the last Lobby Legends like hit Nomi on Millhouse and it just hit thing after thing and just like build the excitement because you're coming up to the climax of who's gonna win the tournament, and like channel that excitement because it will captivate the viewers. The viewers will feel it as well, and so that's sort of on the casters. It's always getting it there. But yeah. So okay, learning from esports. So yeah, the casting thing comes up again, and like I said, it's a work in progress. I understand that. I think they're going through like Slissa got her first chance to commentate on Lobby Legends in for an official Blizzard tournament. She's casted before. Everyone's casted before, but like for a Blizzard event, they gave Slissa a shot, Collins a shot, Nina a shot in the next one. So they're rotating through, and I think eventually we'll find our BG's casters. Nothing against the standard associate casters, but I think once we get to more BG centric casters, you'll bring in more of the Battlegrounds community who already will have some knowledge of these players. And as you get to a consistent point where you have like a Battlegrounds roster of casters, then those viewers will tune in and they'll have that recognizability that the standard players do, or that the standard casters do, I should say. And I think that's a really good thing. Obviously, casting is a skill, and there's many casters that have jumped from game to game, and there's sport commentators that jump to different from different sports. Sorry about that. And I think that so I'm not saying that the standard commentators aren't qualified, but once you do have a set of rotation of casters, then you can sort of leverage it in a positive way. And if you keep some of the standard commentators in there, that's fine as well. But I think pushing on to the BG's familiarity would be a good thing. So circuits, majors, minors, and third-party tournaments. Third-party tourneys. I think this is a big thing that I would love to see in Hearthstone, to maybe move away from the one-offedness of Lobby Legends, right? There's no connectedness aside from you have qualifiers that like are in multiple Lobby Legends from event to event, right? And so what are some of the ways that we could address that? Circuits are a big one, where you would have like majors and minors, and they don't need to be hosted by Blizzard, right? Technically, like this obviously takes a lot of work, and I'm not saying that it's something that you would move to right away, but there's third-party organizers that you could have and even provide a share of funding to potentially, or just do it where you assign like points and you have majors and minors where players can participate in these tourneys rather than just qualifying via ladder, right? And build up points to qualify for these events, and then you play in the qualifiers, and you would be able to have different formats, right? So if certain formats favor to play, like you'd be able to have rotational formats as long as it fit to some specific guidelines that you set up, right? Like you need to have a minimum of 32 players or whatever it is, right? Or 100 players or something, right? It has to be open. It has to, right, have whatever it is, right? You could have invites that are, you have to be on leaderboards, right? And then we're going to invite the top 64 that accept by MMR or something. You could just have these different events and have them feed into each other, and then have Lobby Legends be these pinnacle tournaments, like once a season, right? Once every 3 months, once every 4 months, where, you know, it's based on the points from that season or the year even, you know, where you have like smaller Lobby Legends events that are like they are currently, but then mix those in with some minors. And then, you know, at the end of the year, you have this big major Lobby Legends events that includes like, you know, a direct qualification from every past Lobby Legends winner, and, you know, the players that accumulated the most points between majors and minors, and have this whole circuit that, you know, has this big cumulative like championship at the end, and that, you know, that drives following throughout the season, and it drives promoting third-party tournaments and more tournaments, and it makes there be at least some natural level of increased accessibility, stuff like that. There's like, that could be an entire video on its own, just like a good system. That's what I'd like to see. I understand the difficulty behind it. Again, we talk about admins and all that stuff, and like having strict standards, and it's really difficult, but like, it's just something to think about, right? These are the ideas that we should talk about on how to improve, and what we can aim for, even if it's not a realistic goal in the short term, it could be in a longer term view. And Liquipedia is a big one. Going off of stats, Liquipedia, you might not have noticed this. So all the stats for Lobby Legends Noble Garden are here. Like, you can see the champion. You can, you know, Liquipedia is a fantastic resource for many esports. Lots of people use it. But there's very few like player profiles. You can see like very few. You saw Darkido had very little, right? Zixo will have a little bit more, but like there, like, look, there's a picture and some results, but like filling out some of this stuff would be really good, right? Because there's more connection to the players. You can have some of that stuff, you know, like the mode Battlegrounds. Like, there's no info here. Like, let's make a page for Battlegrounds explaining the mode, right? Like, there's wikis on the, like, just sort of someone go put it on Liquipedia. It'll be fantastic. You know, you have these setups and stuff. Like, it doesn't, I don't even know. Yeah, I guess the check format is sort of distributed here, but like, if you go here, it's already super hard to find info. Like, if you go here, like, you see how few Battlegrounds tournaments there have been, right? Like, if we get some other stuff, and I mean, there's other events too, but like WSOE, this is 2020, right? This is like the last Battlegrounds page that was here. And there's some stuff. I remember this tournament. Happy Cow was Hoppa Bear. No, was it? No, Dream Team was Hoppa Bear and Jakirik. Happy Cow was Slissa, and 12 Wins, who's now Sunbake and Relaxer. And like, you know, some of this stuff is like outdated, right? Like, Victor should have a profile, and I mean, Slissa does from standard stuff, but like, you know, like, build all this out. And I mean, there haven't been a lot of tournaments, but like, it's already hard to find because you had to go to tournaments here. Like, this is Liquipedia Hearthstone. If you go here, like, there's not a Battlegrounds page, right? Like, let's build some of this stuff out, right? And let's get more players in, and just more info. Like, this is a community thing. This isn't even on Blizzard to necessarily do. Like, we can do this. Like, we can build this out and make it very fantastic, right? And we should, right? And it shouldn't have to take like clicking on tournaments and going here to find Battleground stuff, or like the Eternal Night Lobby Legends isn't in here yet. Like, let's get that in here, you know? So Liquipedia, it's a great resource, and I mean, this is a call on the community more than anything else. To work on that. And then, I don't know, just the rest of my own thoughts is like, I talked to players, like, there's so many things that can still be improved that I haven't talked about, and that, I mean, this is already going to be long. I mean, it's an hour-long discussion already of like constant talking, but like, player perspectives, like, think about the player perspectives. What is bad? Like, the format is very bad feeling, right? Because you spend all this time on ladder trying to qualify, and then you get 3 games and it's super RNG reliant, and it doesn't feel good. Like, they've invested all this time. They had to invest all this time because that's how ladder works, right? And then they don't really necessarily get a chance to show the full scope of their abilities. Viewers' perspective, right? Like, let's improve production. Let's continue to, hone in our casting. Let's maybe remove the name thing for qualifiers. Let's like work on promoting some of the qualifier player streams, and maybe set up an official, unofficial broadcast, right? Or like help that as much as you can without having to put in the resources to make it a full production, right? Like, I understand they don't have the resources to make qualifiers like a full production, but like still, like, let people know they're happening. Like, create a public standing sheet for people that is on a delay so that people can follow up. Like, just try and help that, right? These are things that'll help viewer perspectives. It'll help drive viewers. It'll help drive fans, right? Like, that's the big thing. And then, I mean, this is for everyone. Like, think about the priorities. Like, what are the things that you would really like to see change first? As much as the format is nice, maybe that's not something that's really as important in terms of driving interest, right? Like, that's the big thing that we talked about, is like, how do we drive interest? The big thing is like promoting the players, the storylines, like emotional connections that are making you connected to these players that aren't necessarily streamers. Like, you can still do that, right? And for some of them, they are small streamers, and like, but people won't know that. Like, it's hard to know that, I don't know, like Kurt or Bobo Fat are streamers, or Sleepy is a great player that's played in multiple qualifiers. Like, he streams, but he doesn't have a ton of followers. So like, let's show some people to stream. And I'm not trying to pick out anyone particular. Like, those are just like a few off the top of my head, but there's many, right? Like, and even the big players that are playing and streaming, like, put them out there too. Like, drive as much as you can where you can. If they don't stream, that's fine, but like, let's get some background on them. Ask them a few questions. Ask them, do a 10-question survey before the tournament where you can get like some background on like, what's their gaming background, what's their background with Hearthstone, how do they like to play, like, what are their favorite heroes and minion types and comps and these sorts of things. Like, get a little bit from them. Like, maybe if you, I don't know, like, age can be a thing. I don't know what's allowed and what not, but like, promote the players and them so that we can create fans that are invested, right? I think that's the top priority. But like, format, like, maybe a change to 4 games isn't that big of a difference. And if it's low effort, then we can move that up the priority list. But otherwise, like, how much is it impacting interest, right? Socials really desperately need to be improved. Like, that should be a high priority. Socials and the publicity aspect, like, does it warrant a new Twitter page? I don't know. Is it worth investing in? Maybe. Yeah. Like, this is buried in all this other stuff. Like, it's so hard to find. You saw me scrolling through. It's not super engaging. So like, maybe we work on the mediums and stuff that we're working on and posting with. I think that should be a high priority. I think the publicity is like huge. So, yeah, I don't know. There's a lot more I feel like I probably missed, but I just wanted to get some of my ideas down. I bet very few people will actually watch all of this. But if you did and you got to this point and you would like more content like this, be sure to subscribe, follow, ask a question in the comments, or hit me up on Twitter. I like talking about this stuff, so let's talk about it. Let's fix Lobby Legends. I think there's so much that can be improved. I think the basis is there. I think the team really wants to make it work. So give your insights to them. They're open to perspectives, and so that's, I mean, I think that's all for me, right? Probably. It's probably close enough. Well, maybe we'll make another video. Who knows? Anyways, thank you for watching. As always, peace.